So in this session, we are going to cover the thread dumps. So in the previous session, we have learned in detail what exactly is the threads. Okay. So now what we are going to cover, we are going to cover the thread dumps. Okay, which is one of the most critical activity that most of the time we do when we are working as an WebSphere admin, or maybe you are working as a support engineer. Okay, so multiple time we take the thread dumps for different purpose. And what is the purpose of thread dumps? Why we take it? Everything I am going to explain in this particular session. Okay, so thread dump, okay, so which is a very generic word for the threads, okay, specifically when we talk about WebSphere. So in WebSphere, it refer as a Java course. Okay, so wherever you heard about Java course in WebSphere, okay, that means it is talking about the thread dumps. Okay, so what is thread dump or what is Java course dump? It is, you can say it is a diagnostic file, okay, that capture a snapshot of a running JVM state. Now what does it mean? I will explain you in detail, okay, so that you will get a proper understanding. Okay, now what are the different scenarios, okay, when we take the thread dumps? Okay, so thread dumps are one of the best tool, okay, for server hang, slow response, stuck threads, deadlocks, high CPU analysis. Okay, so when you are working on a troubleshooting, okay, so you will multiple time you will face some generic scenarios, okay, where you will see that your server is hanging, it is not responding, right? You may see your applications are responding very slow. Okay, and then we have a stuck threads as well. Okay, whenever the threads processing the request is get stuck, okay, so it declare the state as stuck. Okay, or specifically when we talk about WebSphere, it is referred as a hung thread, right, which we have covered in the previous session. Then we may have a deadlocks, and then we may have a certain times we have a high CPU utilizations that we do the analysis. Okay, so there would be multiple different kind of a scenarios. Okay, and your threads can contribute to all these scenarios. Okay, if your threads are getting stuck, okay, for any reasons, okay, so these are the different multiple symptoms that you can find in the WebSphere. Right. So to do the troubleshooting, okay, when you have these kind of a scenarios, okay, which you may not able to identify, okay, and you are seeing that there are multiple hung thread or stuck threads are getting created in your system, in your JVM, okay, so we have to take the thread dumps and then we do the analysis of the thread dumps, okay. So analysis of thread dump is a kind of a, or you can say a practice. Okay, so you get expert on thread dumps analysis one with the time when you start understanding the threads, when you start understanding the thread dumps, and then you start using the different tools, okay, for generating the different kind of reports about a particular thread dumps. Okay, and then when you dig into it more, the log files and stack trace of thread dump, okay, then the expertise come with the time when you start working on that. Okay, but initially if you are a beginner and you are not very sure on how to do the thread dump analysis, okay, so don't worry on that part. I am going to cover everything in this particular session. Okay, so first I will explain you theoretically, and then I am going to explain you with execution as well. Okay, how to take the thread dumps and how to use some different tools, okay, and how to at least do the initial analysis of the threads, okay, which will be useful for initial troubleshooting. Okay, so now what we learn about the thread. So every request in your JVM is processed by your threads. Okay, so thread is specifically which is at the OS level. Okay, so every request that I said which is executed by a thread. So suppose that we have a managed server, or you can say application server. Okay, MS1. Okay, and then whatever the request that is coming to this particular server. Okay, so this request will be processed by the threads. Okay, so threads is contain your simple a small portion of your RAM, small portion of your CPU, and all these things, right, which is allocated at the OS level. Okay, so now I will give you one example. For example, that like suppose that there is a request that came to your JVM, or you can say to your application server. Okay, and the request is to reach your database for execution of some query, and then send the return request return back. Okay, so in this way what will happen, there is a thread like T1 will be assigned for this particular request. Okay, and once the request is completed, it will be returned back, and this thread will be free for the other request. Okay, so simple thread, whatever the request that is getting processed in your JVM, okay, it is processed by the threads. Okay, so why we take the thread dumps, and what are the different scenarios that I have explained to you, right? You may have a different kind of a scenarios. Okay, in that situation you may need to take the thread dumps. Okay, so what is a thread dump in WebSphere? It is a snapshot of all JVM thread, okay, which shows you the thread name, thread state, and stack trace, and log held weighted. Okay, so that means for this, with respect to each and every thread, there is a specific identity of each and every thread, and there would be a corresponding stack trace, which you can say the logs of a particular thread. So let us take this thread only. Now suppose this is a thread T1, okay, and this thread is processing the request, right, for the DB query. So what will happen for this particular thread? Okay, there would be a corresponding name for this thread. There would be a state of this particular thread. There would be a multiple state of a thread. For example, if it is executing the request at a particular moment, so it could be runnable or running. Okay, if it is waiting for something, the state will be waiting. If it is blocked due to any reasons for long running queries or any for the different reasons, it could be blocked. So there would be different state, right? And then whatever it is executing, okay, for that particular request, there would be a stack trace, which is a log, right? So here this particular thread is contacting the database and executing some queries. Okay, so this stack trace will give you information about this particular thread, what this thread is doing. It is contacted the database and it is trying to execute some query. So this will be in the stack trace. Okay, and apart from that, there would be a logs held waited. So there could be a possible that this particular thread has been logged, okay, or maybe waiting for some other request. There would be a dependency of some request on the some other request, so this thread may be waiting for other thread as well. Okay, or maybe the result that will come from some other thread. Okay, so this is specific information that would be there with respect to each and every thread. Now suppose that you have a 1,000 thread in your system. That means you have a very busy system, and then a lot of requests are getting processed in your system. So that means at a particular moment there would be chance that 1,000 threads are processing some different requests in your JVM. Okay, so that means for each and every 1,000 thread you will have a similar information. This, what is the thread name, a state of thread, stack trace, or all this information will be related to each and every thread. Okay, and whenever we take the thread dump, so what will happen, all this information what we have seen here, which is related with a particular thread. Okay, so every thread information is captured in this thread dump, right? And that's why we take the thread dump, because this thread dump will contain this information about each and every thread. Okay, so if any thread get hung, okay, so we can specifically look for the details of that particular thread in detail, what this thread is doing. First, which thread is get hung and what exactly it was doing when it got hung, so that we can troubleshoot the issue. Okay, for example, here this thread T1 which contacted the database, it is executing some query, but it is not getting the response back because your database is slow, your query is bad, there are multiple reasons, right? So if this is not getting response back, okay, so there will be, when we take a thread dump, okay, so we can look for this particular thread T1. Okay, and when we reach to this particular thread T1 which is hung, and we can look for the stack trace of this particular thread, and in stack trace we can identify, okay, this thread contacted the database, it executed some query, okay, but it didn't get the response back from the database. So now we have to look for our database, why database is not sending the response back. So this is the importance of thread dumps in the WebSphere, specifically not about WebSphere. If you are working on some other application servers as well, okay, then this concept is same across each and every application server. Okay, so now let us move forward. Okay, so now what we are going to check now, generate Java core or Java dump or core dump or thread dump. Okay, all words are referring to same. Okay, so we have a different ways, just like we have seen for the heap dumps. Okay, so we can take the thread dumps from the console, we can take the thread dump with the help of command lines. Okay, and then when we do the analysis, we have a different tools for analysis. Okay, but specifically one or two are some tools that we mostly use for the thread dump analysis. Okay, that I will explain you. So now the very first thing, if you want to generate the thread dump from the console, okay, you have the access of console, so you can go to the troubleshooting section and then go to your Java dumps and core section. So here you will see all the components. Okay, component in the sense, whatever the processes is initiating a particular JVM, okay, all you will see here. So here you can see we have two servers, one DMGR and two node agent, right? So node agent is also a Java based component. Okay, because whenever we start the node agent, it start a JVM in the background, which we can see with the help of process command. So that means you may have a problem with the node agent as well. So in that case, you can take the thread dump of node agent. If you have a problem with the DMGR, you can take the thread dump of DMGR. But if you have a problem with any of the application server, you can take the thread dump of that particular server. Okay, so if you are encountering the problem with each and every application server, so you have to take the thread dump for each and application server. so that you can understand both or all the application servers are getting stuck at the same place, and the reason it would be same, right? So just select whatever the server that you want to take the thread dump, and here you have an option called Java core. Okay, so as I said, this Java core means thread dump in WebSphere. Okay, so you can take the job from the console. Okay, now where it generate the thread dump file, it generate the thread dump file in the profile folder. Okay, so this is the WebSphere home where the WebSphere is installed. Okay, inside that we have a profile folder, and inside that we have all the profiles that we have created. So here it will create the particular thread dump file, okay, which we can use for the analysis. Or maybe when you are working with the WebSphere support, IBM support, okay, so they may ask for you to provide the thread dumps or the hung for the Java core, so you can take it, okay, and then you can share this file with the IBM support team. Second, we have the command line option as well, where we can use the WSA admin utility, again just like we have seen for the thread dumps. Okay, so here we are going to create a JVM object where we will define the JVM process, and we'll provide the server name here. Okay, and then with the help of admin control.invoke, we can simply generate the thread dumps. Okay, again it will be generated in the same location, whatever I have explained, okay, inside your profile location. So this is the second way. Okay, third way is we can use the kill command as well. Okay, but mostly we do not prefer this one. Okay, because this generate the thread dump in your standard log files, okay, which contain multiple other logs as well. Okay, so it would not be feasible like to generate the thread dump with the help of kill command. Okay, but if still someone asking you to generate with the help of kill command, the process is very simple: kill -3 and then PID. You can check the PID of your server with the help of ps-ef, and then grep command. You can grep your name of your server. Okay, this will give you the process ID in the Linux, and then you can run the kill command. Okay, so kill is a Linux based command which we can use for the thread dump, right? So now once the thread dump has been taken, okay, so how you are going to do the analysis of the thread dump? So as I said, thread dump analysis is a kind of activity you get expertise with the time. That means when you start taking the thread dump, when you start looking for the thread dumps, once you start looking for the different scenarios, once you look for some standard scenarios like what kind of a stack trace we get when the request is getting stuck at your database, if the request is getting at the MQ server or some other messaging services, then how the log stack trace are generated. If it is getting stuck for some third party API calls, then how the stack trace is looks like. So that means based on the different scenarios, when you start looking for the thread dump, then you get the expertise, right? But initially when you are doing the initial analysis, when you do not have a complete end-to-end knowledge of thread dump analysis, okay, so the one of the tool that we use in the WebSphere is the IBM thread and monitor dump analyzer, TMDA. Okay, so this is a small jar file that you can download in your system, and then you can run the java-jar and the jar file name. Okay, so this will open your graphical tool. Okay, and there you can just open your thread dump file, whatever the thread dump that we have taken in the previous screen you have seen, just open that one. Okay, and then it will take few seconds, and then you are all set to do the following analysis like CPU usage, memory segment, user process resource limit, command line argument, environment variable, share class cache, native memory, thread status, method. That means inside the particular JVM when you taken the thread dump, okay, there are multiple happening, right? So it will capture the snapshot of each and every sub component which is executing the request inside your JVM at that particular moment. So whenever we start our JVM or the servers, there would be multiple command and argument that we pass. There would be multiple environmental variables. Okay, there would be multiple processes resource limit. There would be memory segmentation that is going to be utilized by your JVM. It is using the certain CPU for the execution of request. So there would be multiple things inside your JVM at that particular moment. Okay, so based on that, you can do the initial analysis with the help of this thread dump and monitor dump analyzer tool. Okay, and the second, which is mostly I would prefer, okay, but which is called the fast thread.io. This is a cloud-based tool, okay, that you can use for the thread dump analysis. Okay, this is a paid tool. That means some advanced features if you want to do, if you want a complete end-to-end analysis of the thread dumps in advanced level. So this is a paid service. But yes, initially, if you trying to learn the thread dumps, or you want to do some initial understanding of your thread dumps, like what is happening. Okay, so for that you can use this fastthread.io. Here you just log in with any of your Google account or any GitHub account, or you can sign up. Okay, and then it will prompt you for to upload your thread dump file. So you just need to upload your thread dump file, whatever the thread dump that we have taken in the previous screenshot you have seen. You just upload it here, It will take some time based on the size of your thread dump, and then it will show you the analysis of your threads. How many threads are running, how many threads are hung. If it is hung, then the grouping of the hung threads, but those are getting stuck at the similar request. So at least you will get some initial basic understanding what is happening at that particular moment inside your JVM, and what are the different threads, their states. Okay, so at least initial some of the initial understanding that you will get with the free account subscription of the fastthread.io. Okay, so now hope it is clear to you the importance of thread dumps and why we take the thread dumps, what are the different scenarios that we have seen for taking the thread dumps. Okay, and some of the tools we mostly use for thread dump analysis. Okay, so now I will show you with the execution.